Good morning, Psychology 1101. First of all, I want to say that I miss you guys so much, but let's hop right into the chapter, and I want to talk a little bit with you about Chapter 8. And Chapter 8 is all about memory. And memory, this chapter will give us some cues about things that we may already know about memory that you probably learned in one of your biology courses, but it's also going to open up some new things about memory that you may not, and some terms that you may not be familiar with. So I just want to point out a few things for you and start to talk about a few things that will trigger your mind. Remember, we're critical thinkers, and so we're going to open our minds to new information about memory and memory as it relates to psychology. First of all, if you're looking at that PowerPoint, or if you would look at the PowerPoint, let's take a look at it right now. So one of the first things that they bring to us is, have you ever looked back at a photograph, maybe of when you were a little girl, or maybe to a special point in life, and it felt like you went right back to that place? Well, it happens to all of us. You guys know how much I love to talk about my daughter. Just the other day, thank goodness for Facebook. And one of the things that I like about Facebook now, more so than I liked before, is that it shows you your memories from the day, a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, so forth and so on. So one of the wonderful things that happened to me just yesterday was that I went on to Facebook, clicked on, and a memory popped up of when my daughter was a cheerleader and she was in competition. And I was sitting there as a parent going, oh my gosh, oh, I remember this, and oh, my baby was so little, and she was so tiny, and it just took me right back to that place. And it was a cheerleader competition video, and so I went right back there, and I remembered the cheers that they were doing, and I was cheering along with them. And not only was I remembering the cheers, I was remembering the emotions, and that video triggered my memory, and it brought back some past experiences for me. And if you think about it, there are some pictures and some photographs. Go back to your mom's house or think about it, and those memories will pop back into mind, and it is as if you can relive the whole moment. And that is totally magnificent. One of the magnificent things about memory, that and how photographs can trigger our memory. And as you're reading the text, you'll find out more about that, but let's continue to go on for a few minutes here. So there are 3 things that we need to know about our memory. There's something called encoding, storage, and retrieval. Encoding involves the input of information into your memory system. Storage is the retention of the encoded information, while retrieval, or getting the information out of memory and back into awareness, is the third function. So here are your 3 functions of memory. Once again, they're encoding, storage, and retrieval. So when an event is actually taking place in your life, what's happening is the encoding process. So that is like, actually, as the word denotes, encoding it into your memory. It's just like it's a little photographer in your mind, or a little digital person in your mind, actually encoding that memory, and then you store it. You push it back until a time when you're going to need it later. And then what's wonderful about memory is when you need that thing, it comes back forward. It comes back up. Now, like every day, I'm not using 2 plus 2 every day, because who knows, I'm not using that as a math problem. Or if you think of one of the more difficult things, who's using the Pythagorean theorem every day? If you're not a math major, maybe you're not using the Pythagorean theorem every day. But when you need it, and when you hear those words, our brain has a way of retrieving that memory and bringing it back up so that we can use it again. Isn't that amazing? That's a great thing about memory. So the 3 functions of memory: encoding, storage, and retrieval. Continue to read that textbook and look at those study questions, because it will expand on what I'm saying to you right now. Now, One of the things that your book tried to bring out, it says when you first learn new skills, such as driving a car, you have to put forth effort and attention to encode information about how to start a car, how to brake, how to handle a turn, and so on. And once you know how to drive, you can encode additional information about the skill automatically. Now, when we first got in that car, you didn't know if to flip that indicator up or down in order to go left or right, because you were just learning that thing. But now it's automatic. You don't even think about, when I'm flipping it up, I'm going to turn left, or when I'm flipping it down, I'm going to turn right. It's automatic for you. And I hope another thing that's automatic for you when you get in the car is thinking about putting on your seatbelt. It should be an automatic function for you now. But there are a lot of things that we do. We store the information in our mind. It has to be encoded first, and then it's stored, and then we use it as we need it, just as we just discussed with the 3 functions. So think right now, sit down and think about something that was encoded in your mind and you stored it for later use. Now, we just talked about learning how to drive, but what about learning how to study? Did you encode information, store it, and you're using it later? Now, some of us don't know how to study, and that becomes a problem for us. But you can learn how to study using this simple method, using the functions of memory, and it will help you to study along the way. But those are some things I want you to think about and expand your mind and open your mind to think a little bit more, think more about as you go along. Now, the Kesson-Shiverin model of memory, information passes through 3 distinct stages in order to for it to be stored into long-term memory. Now, we've heard the terms before, short-term and long-term memory, but the Kesson-Shiverin model says that there are 3 stages that we have to go through. So there's sensory input, which is sensory memory, short-term memory, then long-term memory. But some rehearsal has to take place. How many of you rehearse things to commit it to memory? Like, remember, I know now we have cell phones. We don't know anybody's number. And if I ask you, hey, what is Sally Sue's number? You'll flip straight to the contacts. But it was back in the day when we had a house phone, we used to actually memorize numbers. And when you ask your little friend at school, hey girl, what's your number? And she said 732-9647. Okay, so what you would do is you would begin to rehearse that. 732-9647, 732-9647, 732-9647, 732-9647. Now what I'm doing, I'm locking Sally's number into my brain. I'm rehearsing that thing over and over so that I can retrieve it later. So now, 2 days from now, what's Sally Sue's number? Oh, 732-9647. We rehearse things, and that helps it to commit to memory by rehearsal. And it's just like now, some people, if you think about it, they don't understand math, but they rehearsed their times tables. And even though they may not really understand that 2 times 2 is 4, but they knew, oh, what are the 2's times table? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. They know how to give that back to you. They may not really understand what those numbers are, what they mean, how they really got together, but you can commit a thing to memory and store it there. Just something to think about. Well, let's continue. The Stroop Effects describes why it's difficult for us to name a color when the word and the color of the word is different. There's a great little illustration of this in figure 8.5 in your book. I want you to take a look at that because it is hard to read R-E-D, but when you see the color B-L-U-E. Look at that box on 8.5 and you can see what I'm talking about. But yeah, we do it all the time. What would you do if a stop sign isn't red anymore? yeah, just something to think about. So, we talked about the functions of the brain in an earlier chapter. I think when we talked about biopsychology when we were in class, maybe around chapter 3. But now we want to bring the brain back again so that you can see how the portions of the brain actually relate to memory. And look at figure 8.9, if you would, in the book. In the amygdala, I almost said the word wrong, amygdala is involved in fear and fear memories. Can you believe that there is a portion of your brain which houses what is related to fear in your life? And that's why I say it all the time. Me and my dad, we get into it because, I'm looking at things from a psychological perspective, and I guess he's looking at it from his own perspective. And he has 2 dogs, and the dogs are in the yard. And people come by, and he'll say, some people, when they're just walking by the yard and they see the dogs, even though the dogs are tired, they want to run. They have a fear of that animal. And he's always thought, that dog doesn't want you. That dog is, the dog is probably more afraid of you than you are of it. But you have people who just see the dog and they're ready and they're prepared to run because they are afraid. Guess what? There's a portion in their brain right here where fear and fear memories reside. And perhaps with that person, they could have been a very small person, a very small, tiny child, and perhaps a dog attacked them, or perhaps a dog nipped them, or bit them, or jumped on them. But some kind of way, at some point, it was committed to their memory to be afraid of a dog. And so that portion houses that. And so you have people afraid for a lifetime because that part is stuck in there. It's stuck in there to be afraid of a dog. And so people go 50, 20, 30, 40, 50 years because there is a fear memory locked in that portion of the brain. Now, the hippocampus is associated with declarative and episodic memory as well as recognition of memory. Isn't that funny? We can have declarative and episode. You can remember episodes of your life, episodes of everything that's going on, and it's housed in that portion of the brain where it says the cerebellum plays a role in processing procedural memories such as how to play the piano. For you to do a process of things, and I played the piano growing up, well, I don't play anymore. I guess I could if I wanted to, but I don't. But I remember distinctively, every good boy does fine. Those were those are your letters. I remember that, and I have not looked at any sheet music in years, but I know middle C, and I know, B flat, and I know the scales. I could still play them. I could feel it in my fingers just talking about it. But in the prefrontal cortex appears to be involved in remembering semantic text. This is amazing how different portions of your brain holds different things for you to remember by. It's simply amazing. The memory is amazing. That's why not only is memory amazing, it is also, equally amazing and disheartening when you see one of your loved ones go through Alzheimer's. I watched my grandmother decline over the years, where she lost her memory. And, well, that's another topic, but it's equally amazing. That's why we got to keep our brains healthy. And we can keep our brains healthy by brain exercising, doing things to keep those wheels turning. Puzzles, reading. Reading keeps your brain healthy. And I know as college students, you guys don't like to read. However, you must read. It helps to keep the brain healthy. So let's keep our brains healthy. Let's go ahead and take a look at some more things here. Figure 8.10 in your book shows us a terrifying account of 9/11. And it says most people can remember where they were when they first heard about 9/11 terrorist attacks. This is an example of a flashbulb memory, a record of an atypical or unusual event that has very strong emotional associations. This is so true. I remember exactly where I was when I heard about the 9/11 attacks. I was working for the state of Georgia. I was working as a counselor associate for the Department of Human Resources. And that morning, I got two horrific events in one, because that morning I was at my doctor's office, and it was that very day. As I was sitting in the waiting room, I'm watching the smoke, the buildings go down, people running, screaming in terror and horror. And then I go into my doctor's office and he gives me the bad news that I can no longer have children. So yeah, flashbulb memory, boom, I got it. So let's continue on. Just Figure 8.11 shows you, this diagram illustrates the timeline of retrograde and anterograde amnesia, memory problems that extend back in time before the injury and prevent retrieval of information previously stored in long-term memory are known as retrograde amnesia. Conversely, memory problems that extend forward in time from that point of the injury and prevent the formation of new memories is called anterograde amnesia. So look up those terms in your book. And it's amazing. I have had clients, like I told you guys, I worked as a vocational rehabilitation counselor, and I had a young man who was one of my clients. He had suffered a traumatic brain injury, and he just simply couldn't remember what was behind him. I mean, what was his past? He had no recollection of it, and it was all because of the TBI, which is the traumatic brain injury. And it happens with those. And so you could actually experience retrograde amnesia, where you simply forget it. And you forget it for whatever reasons. And a TBI is certainly the reason, if you had a traumatic brain injury, that would cause you to forget several things. People in car accidents is one way. Traumatic brain injury, falling from high heights, things falling and hitting you on the head. And I've even known of clients who suffered traumatic brain injuries because of domestic violence. So literally they've had their memories beat out of them because of the bruising that it caused to their brain. They lost their memory. It's amazing. It's amazing. Tragic, but also amazing. Figure 8.12 shows you in studying cases where DNA evidence has exonerated people from crimes, the Innocence Project discovered that eyewitness and misidentification is leading cause of wrongful convictions. Now, the reason they're mentioning this, you know what, if you, even now, if all of us who are watching this video were asked to focus on one thing, and we asked for an eyewitness account of it, we all may notice something different. One of you, even if you're looking at me right now, one of you, if you were asking for an eyewitness account, oh, what was Miss Archer wearing? One of you may say, well, she had on a black shirt with purple writing with silver letters. One may say, oh, no, she had on a black shirt with hot pink writing with diamond letters. Our memories vary, and once we commit that thing to memory, that's what we saw and how we saw it. However, it may not necessarily be accurate. And then you got to think, sometimes by the time these court cases go to trial, it is several months. It could be a year. And you're asking for an eyewitness account of something that happened 18 months ago. Will that memory be crisp and sharp the same way it was the day that it happened? And so we are finding out more and more. Some of all this eyewitness identification, it ain't working. It's just not working the way that we want it to. And unfortunately, people are going to jail behind this. So you have a chart there showing, that one of the leading causes of wrongful conviction is because someone said they saw something. And then when they remember it, they're not remembering it correctly. And, it's sad that you have the right to testify against someone and you're recalling something and you recall it incorrectly, and then that person's life is at stake. Terrible and sad case. But hey, here you have the statistics on it on your figure 8.12. So take a further look at that. And then this is what I love. It leads right into it with 8.13. It says, when people are asked leading questions about an event, their memory of the event may be altered. Just for instance, just like I was just saying, even if with you watching this video, one of you may describe my shirt as being black with purple letters, where another one may say black with hot pink letters. But can you imagine if you were asked about it and then they said, remember Miss Archer gave the lecture on video and she was wearing that navy blue shirt with the purple letters and the bling? And you're like, no, I think the shirt was black. But what they did was gave a leading question and they kind of threw something out there. And now what they're doing is altering your memory. You may have thought it was black today, tomorrow, next week. But a year from now, when you get that altering question, you're going to start committing to well, maybe it was navy blue. And now, months after that, you're going to stick with what your memory has been altered to believe. It's amazing that your memory can be altered by what someone else says. So continue to read this chapter. You're going to find some very interesting things in there about memories. I will be posting your discussion questions for the week. They should be interesting. Can't wait to read your answers. And your test will be up and you'll have it to take as well. And I miss you guys so much. Can't wait to see you guys on the week of Thanksgiving. Be sure to be in class because, we're going to be doing some great stuff, some stuff advanced for your quiz. No, not the quiz, but the exam that's coming up. It has been great sitting here talking with you guys. Continue to read chapter 8. Explore everything there is to know about memory and psychology. And remember, be a critical thinker and open your mind to explore new ways of looking at it. See you next time. Have a good one.